I can pick up the phone now and have somebody there in 15 minutes versus do it ourselves and be there in an hour 45.
Let me just set you kind of expectation management on how Sector Mobile is staffed and resourced to do this kind of work. We have a 7x24 command center with 4 people in it. They're doing search and rescue and law enforcement and screening all the incoming vessels to all the 5 major ports, Gulf 4 passage, Ruler, Mobile. And they're standing that watch. 3 of them are up all the time. The last one is up in the night as needed, but awake all the time. And they're the folks who are taking all the calls, National Response Center calls. They're under Commander King. There's a staff of 8 people who handle all the spills in this area. And the call will come in. They might get an NRC report, or the command center might, and they're called and respond. Yep. Or make a decision about whether to respond or when to respond. You get 100-gallon leak in the middle of the night. You may or may not.
What's the system you guys use in the state? The Flashpoint? Is that
State warning point.
Yeah.
And then you've got EM Constellation.
Yeah. Warning point.
And so that person is usually anywhere from 25 to 35-year-old petty officer who's going to engage and is sort of the one person, Federal On-Scene Coordinator Representative, FOSCR, who's going to go out and be the eyes and ears for almost every spill. The big ones we might throw a few good people at it, but they're going to go out and start, and they're going to be the initial incident command post. Maybe our watch at the command center is that they're doing a bunch of other things. And then it becomes a matter of prioritizing whom to call. The SOSC is often one of the first calls that the Coast Guard guy makes and say, did you get that report? And maybe the other way, the SOSC may be calling the Coast Guard guy, hey, I got a report. And that's the initial dialogue that happens routinely, I think. Would you agree?
Almost every day.
And then you all go, who else should we be calling? Or
who's going to respond?
Who's
decide
going to?
If I'm closer or he's closer. Basically, you have 8 people for
the whole coast.
Whole coast.
Mississippi, Alabama,
It's myself and Bruce McNutt, which stand right behind you for 10 counties. So I do the coastal, I do inland. So anytime there's abandoned drone, train derailment, planes falling out of the sky, environmental crimes, because we're the forensic experts, we take the sample.
Right.
So coastal is a fraction of what I do.
And then the key is in those early hours to figure out what do you start spinning up right away. And the counties are saying, hey, you know what, you got a 7x24 watch, I know. Or is it the 911 center, or I'm not sure.
Yeah, we've got
but you got people that respond. And so that piece is the piece to start engaging.
Yeah, those are resources don't forget about. Everybody stretches them.
Yeah, the NRC report should go to technically it should go to the county EOC at that level for if there's NOC, if there's a report within that area. The National Response Center is the first notification, and that's meant to be to push it out not only to the federal and state stakeholders, but then internally inside.
So anybody sees a spill, they call that 1-800 number.
Well, I was going to say, with the Big Lagoon spill, we're really glad to see Coast Guard there, and hey, okay, it's under control, and we felt very comfortable with that. You're right, then there's the money issue of it.
We got to call our contractor.
Yeah.
Okay, if you go out there, you got to eat it. That's just the bottom line.
But the push-pull of it is, please, the phone call, as you can see with the state, is they go both ways. And it can certainly go both ways to make sure people are engaged.
We have mechanisms. If we communicate with the Coast Guard and we respond, if we use our contractor, we can go against the fund center to get reimbursed. So we have statutes and rules and regulations, and we have an agreement with the fund center of the mechanism that we use. We would have to establish that mechanism with the fund center.
I don't think they can do that.
But anyway, I
don't think they can get it perfect.
I just wanted to give you a sense, not to say
the state can, but
the
not
state
the
can.
local
Local can't
not
get it
to
perfect.
say that's a problem, because we all have resources, but just to have you understand how to access that initial response point. It's our command center, it's our pollution responder, and it's our state coordinator are the initial resources that are applied, and then an incident command stood up kind of out of that mustard seed to the degree.
That may be a different conversation.
Yeah, it's a different conversation. Because
The difference
I don't want to boil it all down to funding, but it's going to all boil down.
what it boils down to is funding.
That's right.
You
It
know,
always
they
does.
can hire a contractor, I can hire a contractor. We have mechanisms to abate pollution. You know, the drum washes ashore.
Okay, Captain, give me the eye here, David.
I am,
Okay.
but I'm
But
sure
that
he's been
gentleman's got
waiting,
one left
and
right
I don't
there.
want. I know a lot of you are waiting a long time. 2 hours we've been here.
I've got a quick comment to help you guys. You're going to put together, implement some kind of a plan for emergency response, and the VU program being part of the idea that maybe for another storm, another leak, there's not going to be a VU program, but we had a guy named Captain Richie Russell whose vessel was damaged because it pulled oil in through the the port to cool the engine, and it did some damage to it, and some inexperienced captains were put on the water by the owners of the boats who weren't qualified to be captains, and the swells came and damaged the fiberglass of his rig, so he had some damage. He actually went out of business because he needed to have the engine overhauled, which would have cost him $60,000, and he was promised verbally at the beginning that it would be in the same condition that it was at the end of the VU program. But what I'm saying is that was a BP thing, and I would think if you were going to implement something, a strategy where VU would be included in the future, that for the most part, this gentleman had a great idea, about keeping one single commander in charge of who's going to be running things week to week, because that's what Richie Russell said too. That caused a lot of the problem. But make sure that the people that they put on in the VU program are the local people that are supposed to know the waters, and not people that are pulled in out of anywhere just simply because there's money to be made by using the VU for the benefit.
Well, let me say one thing, and I think you need to be aware of this.
Okay.
Coast Guard had limited oversight of the VU hiring process.
What I'm saying is if it's
Okay.
going to be implemented in the future as a possible
Well-
idea, this would be good.
I'm just going to go on record, is
Okay.
that the federal government is not advocating enacting the VU program. That was
Okay.
a specific program enacted by BP as a result of the usage in Alaska that they liked.
Okay, so wait. Now, if this is ever, but if the Coast Guard says to, all right, if a company wants to implement a
do
VU
that.
program,
You're
Right.
giving us suggestions on
Yeah.
what worked and what didn't in VU.
Right.
Okay, that's great.
So what I'm thinking is this: if another company wants to implement a VU program, you would have to say, okay, but you must inspect their boats beforehand,
Yeah.
and have an accident damage report done on the day that any damage is noticed,
Yeah.
and that a copy has to go to the captain, and so it's all documented as a before and after,
Yeah.
because now they're
But I
saying,
like this gentleman's idea a whole lot better, that the locals run the program.
yeah, I like that one too.
I like that a lot better.
They all
Run
kind of go
that
together.
program, let the local folks
Well,
run it.
Okay, sorry. Thank you for that feedback.
Yeah.
VU was a very interesting
Yeah.
program that
Very
applied a lot of
interesting program.
resources to it when the clamor was high for resources, and our boats are sitting at the pier. Please use us. And but as you saw, there were lots of difficulties.
Great tool wasn't quite coordinated in its use.
That's right.
Yeah.
I
Do
think
you
you're
think
right.
you think the county would take on a program like that in a major?
Yeah, and
We
basically,
had our
did.
own.
I mean, ideally, it'll get back into some type of reimbursement
That's right.
mechanism. And
Yeah,
That's right.
I think
That's
if
right.
we could do that.
That's right.
I think if we could be given, and we had that, and we could be given the ability to do communication, it would be something. But it's all based on who gets paid.
It
That's
is.
where all we're struggling.
It's-
And I think that's where I don't think any of us, and all this discussion, can solve the issue if the law has not changed itself. I mean, that's why I went to
I
Congress
agree.
to
I
say
agree.
you need to change the law
Grover's
to
right.
basically say when these kind of huge oil spills happen and it begins to impact citizens, at some point the responsible party, all they become responsible for is writing the check, and you got to let the people who are in charge of public safety take over.
I agree.
And that's that's what all these people here are trying to tell you is the frustration is having BP in charge of this is an incredible. They shouldn't be in charge of it. Ultimately, they should pay for it.
Yeah.
But once it crosses over to a certain degree, all of us in this room are about trying to get the people protected, and that's our major priority.
The way we looked at it is that they had, before it hit Florida waters, they had 100 miles to handle it. If they couldn't handle it in 100 miles, then that last 10 miles was just spreading them thinner and thinner.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I would say that all of us, federal, state, local, work for the citizens. And we are citizens, and I think it's a matter of how we access and allocate those citizen resources, and to not use city, local, or county resources is not using everything that's available to the public.
And I'll tell you one of the advantages of letting the RP do it. Whenever I buy a pencil, do you know how hard it is for the federal government to buy a pencil or to hire a contractor under federal contracts? BP can just go out and do it.
Yeah.
Do you know what undersea remote operating vehicle resources the federal government has at its disposal?
Zero.
Do you know what BP does? And this is the issue, is that the RP is operating now. Creates issues, it's a balance. But I appreciate that, because what this also tells me is that as we, as the guys who are sitting as the federal and state on-scene coordinators, are managing our responsible party. It's a judgment call, it's a dance, it's a unified command, and it's a judgment call how much we can lean into them, because we know that we bring all of the federal bureaucracy behind it if we can or can't do it, and how much we can empower them, and where we can make it. There's a lot of great ideas here on improving it. When we think about setting up the incident command, say, RP, who's communicating with the counties, and how is that being done? Okay, we need to do that better. Or RP, what's your volunteer plan? Okay, who are you looking for? And what sort of public information are we getting? Is that claims number going out and all the pieces that go with that? Those are the pieces. These lessons here, I think, they're all great. And then the dispersant piece. Poison is in the environment. What's the best way to deal with that poison?
Yes, sir.
Your solution has said bioremediation is the best. The science is...
I have it.
And I will say, I'm not the scientist. He's not the scientist. We rely on our scientific experts. And you've gone to the right people, EPA, the NOAA, and those are the people that I count on that help us. And when we make decisions to introduce other chemicals to deal with these chemicals, I go up to the regional response team. They are higher level, both politically and scientifically sourced to make that call. I think it's been a very helpful for me session. Carl, what do you think?
There's murder for me, both.
Okay, good. I like that. Final comments from any folks up here? I know you probably have a lot more.
I have tons to say.
Yeah, okay.
Well, you got to do it fast.
No, but we've been here a couple hours, and this dialogue should not end.
Real quick, Noah, do you have anything serious?
No.
Okay. Trish, none?
Yeah, I'd just
Okay.
like to say that I have packets.
Great.
We have some stuff on disc that
Okay.
if we can't, we don't have
So
enough
is each one
packets
of
for
those a
everybody.
packet? So
Yes, each one of these
Okay,
packets,
great.
and they all have.
You want.
So I'd like to give to the people,
Great, thank
you
you.
guys, and then if anybody needs them, we are also putting some on disc. I would really like to share them.
All right, and lastly, A, I want to thank everybody for coming. B, I'm going to reemphasize it one last time. Ashley's going to send out a bang list when we hold these meetings. Okay, everybody here is invited to, if they want to work, okay, and put in those issues and in ESI's Environmental Sensitivity Index of prioritization.